Hi, my name is David Harris. I'm CEO of American Jewish Committee. When we hear talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict, inevitably, of course, we hear about Palestinian refugees as one of the products of that conflict. But we rarely, if ever, hear about another refugee population, a population that numbered hundreds of thousands, roughly equal to the Palestinian population. Those were Jews, Jews from the Arab world, Jews from Iran. November 29th has been designated as a day to remember this otherwise too often forgotten population. Let me illustrate the tragedy in a very personal way. Let me talk for a moment about a then 16-year-old girl named Giulietta in 1967. She lived in Tripoli, Libya, together with her 7 siblings, her parents, and other members of her family. That family believed they had lived on what might be called Libyan soil for some 2,000 years since the Roman era. In fact, they had arrived on Libyan soil hundreds of years before the Arab invaders, conquerors, and occupiers of what became the Libyan Arab nation. And of course, not only were Jews there at the time of the invasion, but so were the indigenous Berbers and others. But that's another story. Jews in 1948 had numbered about 40,000 in Libya. By 1967, when Giulietta was 16, the number had dwindled to 4,000 to 5,000. Other Jews had left. They were unsure about their future in Libya. But these last several thousand Jews thought, you know what? We're second-class citizens, we're targets of persecution, but still, this is where we live. This is where we've buried members of our family. This is our only home. And so they stayed in the vain hope that they might have a bright future. But then came the 1967 Six-Day War, triggered by the death threats from Egypt and Syria calling for the annihilation of the State of Israel. And 1,000 miles away, mobs in Libya went looking for the Jews as an extension of that conflict. And they found Giulietta's home, and they surrounded it with an estimated 200 to 300 people, chanting, "Death to the Jews," wanting to burn down that home with Giulietta, her siblings, and her parents. Fortunately, one extraordinarily brave Arab stood up to the crowd and said, "Leave this family alone." And they did. They went looking for other families, but this family was safe and went into hiding for several weeks. With the help then of the Italian ambassador in Tripoli, the family got safe passage out of Libya, never to return. As a result of that, I met my future wife, Giulietta. I met her in Rome. And I discovered this whole story of what happened to the Jews in the Arab world, because what happened in Libya was not unique. The same was in Algeria, in Egypt, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and in later years in Iran as well. Once vibrant Jewish communities with deep roots, centuries-long roots, millennia-long roots in the Arab world have just vanished. And today, as in Libya, there are no monuments, no museums, no recognition even that these Jews once existed, much less participated, even as second-class citizens in the life of the country. So, with no fanfare, no UN resolutions, no media editorials, almost no diplomatic discussion, these hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees just vanished into thin air to restart their lives in Israel, in Europe, in North and South America, but otherwise forgotten. November 29th is our opportunity to say, no, they are not forgotten. They are remembered. They're an important part of the story of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And yes, there were 2 refugee populations, not 1. We must never, ever forget that.